Well, we're going to turn our attention now to the motivation at work itself. And so just for reference sake, we are going to be in Module 34. The specific area of focus here is going to be work itself. And the thing to keep in mind when we talk about work is that it meets actually several human needs. The work that puts us in flow is both satisfying and enriching, and we will describe what flow means. It's a technical term, actually. The growing field of industrial organizational psychology attempts to match people to work, enhance employee satisfaction and productivity. It explores strategies for effective workplace management and create user-friendly machines and work settings. So IO psychology really does have a profound impact in the workplace, and over the course of my career I've had the opportunity to work a little bit in this particular area, and we're actually talking about a variety of workplace issues that come into play with relationships between managers and also between and workers, and also within workers themselves. People who excel are often self-disciplined individuals with strong achievement motivation. As we already have talked about in class this week, since I'm a little slow at getting this one up, effective leaders build on people's strengths. They understand their needs, what motivates them, work with them to set specific and challenging goals, and ultimately they change their leadership style to the person, not the situation. And that's one place where I diverge from your book, because I have my own very strong opinions about leadership, and perhaps I'll review a little bit of that in terms of what I've said in class itself. So first of all, let's just define a couple things first in terms of the workplace, and specifically the concept of flow, which is a key concept. And work that helps us satisfy a variety of levels. So don't forget, which we have reviewed briefly, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And even though it's been adapted over time, it still bears some usefulness to us when we're talking about the workplace. So we've got physio needs here. Let's just review this real quick. We've got safety needs. We've got belonging, and I'll just put belong in here. We've got esteem. It's a little hard to write in such a small space. Here we have self-actualization, and then here we have self-transcendence, and each of these are part of the backdrop. And we have to understand that work really does allow us to meet needs on a variety of levels. Work supports us. It connects us to people. Where else when you get into the workplace, you spend more time than in the workplace itself, and ultimately it helps to actually define us. And I'll get to flow here in a minute. The other aspect of work is that oftentimes it's defined in very many different ways. We've got the concept of career. Some people will just simply refer to it as a job because it's not really something that they plan to do all their lives. And certainly in the Christian world, we refer to it as a ministry or a calling. Many pastors think of it in those terms as well. So work plays a huge role, and don't let anybody fool you that work is not, work itself is not a product of the fall of man. When you look closely into the account in Genesis, you will find that Adam was actually given a job to do. He was told to caretake and take care of the garden and tend it. And so there was work to do before the fall. What happened with the fall is that work became frustrated. And that's what essentially was the mark of sin in our lives, is that work was productive, it was self-defining, it was fulfilling, even in that moment in time when God gave Adam the job to do. But after sin, God basically promised that with sin, his work, he would work by the sweat of his brow, and he would spend most of his life. The thing about flow is this, and let me just go back to this term which I've kind of closed in here, is that flow as a term means that work fully engages us. And I would presume that many of you are in school to be able to find a flow, a job that provides you with flow. It not only fully engages us psychologically, but it also fully engages our skill sets and skills that we have built over time. And then finally, it also engages us emotionally as well, which is kind of contained within the psychology aspect of it. So the work, you probably have heard the phrase, if you love the work that you do, you'll never really work a day in your life. And that's that's part of the flow idea. And it's a technical term. It's something that when we are completely involved and have a diminished awareness of self and time, then we would be considered experiencing flow. Flow itself experiences boost our self-esteem. It boosts our sense of competence, and it also boosts our sense of well-being. So flow leads to a boost in self-esteem, in competence, and my sense of competence, my ability to accomplish things and do them well, and then finally, it also contributes to well-being, and that's all behind the concept that we refer to as flow itself. Now, the other area in psychology, and I mentioned this way at the beginning of the semester, but there are basically four major specialties in psychology. I got to learn how to write here. I'm putting A's and J's together. Specializations, and for those of you who aspire to move on to PhD, this is usually the areas in which most people specialize. You have clinical, which tend to be defined in terms of the setting in which you might find them, clinical psychs. You have counseling psychs, which oftentimes you will find far more likely in educational settings. That's what my particular degree is in. Clinical psychologists, you're probably going to find them in a clinic or hospital setting. You will also have I.O. psychologists, industrial organizational psychs. And you will find them in business, in corporations, working within that to help within the business for greater productivity, greater levels of relationship, and so forth. And then last, sometimes you would put educational. Sometimes people would put school psychology in here, and that's another area of specialization that you oftentimes see people interested in if you want to work in a school setting. Specifically, I.O. psych is primarily the subfields of personnel psychology, and I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because they can get really boring really fast, but personnel psychology, organizational psychology, which oftentimes talks a lot about leadership, or organizational psych, and then We also have human factors psychology, which is all within the broad title of IO, or industrial organizational psychology. And each area specializes in a particular set of skills. So, for example, personnel psychology applies methods and principles in the selection and evaluation of workers. Organizational psychology considers how the work environment and management styles influence worker motivation, satisfaction, and productivity. And then finally, human factors psychology explores how machines and environments can be optimally designed to fit human abilities. And those are the three key areas just in IO that are all related to the workplace. And depending on your specialization and the level of your interest, basically you would be looking in one of these areas. Now, personally, just for me, my particular interest, and by getting a PhD, oftentimes you will get additional training in some of these same areas, but organizational psych was one of those areas that I worked within and took out of my private practice to do consulting with businesses. And this is one of those areas where you can have a huge impact because you're impacting the workplace and what people experience. And so a lot of times this would include workshops that are done in a business setting. It can be consulting with managers in terms of effective leadership styles. All of those are part of organizational psychology that are really quite interesting because you begin to realize that in the work setting, it's profound how people are led and how they are dealt with managers themselves. So that's just a real brief overview of psychology. Like I said, flow is the key term here that we want to define to make sure you understand that one. But how we go about understanding psychology in the work setting includes these three subfields, if you will, of industrial organizational psychology.